Hello and welcome to All to Do with the Blue. I am your host, Rowan Whites, and today our guest is the Assistant Chief of Newtown, Connecticut's Search and Rescue Team. Welcome, Dr. Cassetta. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Ryan. Thanks for having me, Rowan. Excuse me. Thanks for having me as your guest.
Yeah, no problem. It's all good, man. So you're the Assistant Chief of the Search and Rescue Team, which is pretty awesome. You guys are called NUSAR. Am I getting that right?
That's right. It's Newtown Underwater Search and Rescue, and it's also called NewSAR. And we're a regional team in Western Connecticut. So we do have members from various towns, and we also cover many communities in the western portion of the state.
Yeah, so you guys do a lot of different areas in the state then.
That's correct. Well, the western region, but a lot of different municipalities. Yep.
Okay. So please tell us how did you get into search and rescue?
Yeah, so I have been a certified scuba diver since 1989, and in my lifetime, I've done about 3,800 dives, including a lot of cold water and low visibility, which are the conditions that we do have in Western Connecticut. I'm also a physician and teach first aid courses, and so shortly after Sandy Hook, we lived locally. Some of the team members from NUSAR were also some of the first medics who went into Sandy Hook. So the team was short on personnel. So I wanted to give back to the community. So that's really where I joined the team, where there was a need, and I also had a skill set that could be useful. So I've been a member since 2013. So I've now been on the teams for about 13 years and have really enjoyed and my time on the team.
Wow, that's awesome. I appreciate people like you out there, really giving your time back to the communities. A lot of people don't, probably think about that kind of thing a lot during their average day to day. They don't see a lot of people like you guys or like thank you kind of guys. I think it's a dwindling profession. A lot of people out there, especially like police officers, firemen, guys don't get enough recognition, especially for the time you guys give.
Yeah, and we are all volunteer, so we're professionally trained, but we are a volunteer team. So everybody has a full-time life outside of the team, and but gives the commitment, and that's what we expect because what we do is potentially very hazardous, and we rely on each other both for support, but also basic safety and keeping each other, in one piece. And so it's a really good group of people.
Yeah, you got to be a team when it comes to stuff like this too.
Oh yeah.
You talked a little bit about different water conditions. You mentioned murky and cold water. Can you tell us maybe a little bit of the different kind of conditions that you might come into when you do search and rescue?
Yeah, unfortunately, the water in Western Connecticut, and we deal mostly with the inland waterways, so like Lake Zor, Lake Leelanau, Candlewood Lake, some of the ponds and the rivers, and typically the visibility within the water is quite low. So generally, if you held your hand out in front of your face, most times that would be good visibility for what we have. So you really cannot see very far. And the water's dark and frequently cold. We do operate year round, including under the ice. So you have to be prepared for that. And then there's many hazards down. What a lot of folks don't think about is, particularly when you get away from any beach areas, the lakes and freshwater bodies in Connecticut have a lot of what's called millweed. So there are very thick weeds that we sometimes have to work through. There's down tree trunks, and there's lots of potential entanglement hazards. Coupled with cold water and low visibility, it's a potentially very hazardous environment. So that's why we have many, many protocols in place to keep each other safe.
Yeah, and that's important. So when you're facing these kind of conditions, I'm guessing you guys are on a boat, especially if you have to go out and search for something.
Well,
Uh, Go ahead. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. I was gonna say we operate different platforms. So, like say Candlewood Lake, frequently we are diving off a boat. Unfortunately, most drownings take place not far from the shoreline. So sometimes we're going off of the shoreline, and we could use boats as well to search, and we have additional tools to help search with sonar, which is side scan. You send out a signal that comes back, and you can read an interpreted image. And we also have drop cameras, and one of our team members has an underwater ROV that we can used all to assist in any search, because when you can't see very far, it can be difficult to find missing victim under the water. But the conditions can be, like I said, quite hazardous, but we can go off boats, we can go off land. Sometimes even, unfortunately, we had one last summer near the Stevenson Dam where we had to set up shop on the side of basically a cliff face and lower the gear down and climb down ladders and then dive there. So we figure out a plan before we ever put people in the water, but we're capable of diving in many different conditions, including shore, boat, or whatever necessary to get the job done.
Okay, so in the case of that incident, are you guys already planning on your way there? If there's like someone that goes ahead of you guys, because I'm sure you didn't know that you would need to use some sort of ladder
Yeah,
or.
what typically happens is the local fire department will usually be the first agency on scene. So they will be what's called incident command, and they're responsible for the team. And then they'll request our services through Newtown's dispatch, and we'll respond. So that call was actually Oxford and Stevenson Fire Department in Monroe were in charge. So they went and assessed the scene, got a last scene point, meaning where the victim was last seen. So we knew pretty close to where he was. And then when we get there, we know most of the locations we're going to. We don't always know what the precise conditions would be. So when we looked to go from an easy shore access, we would have had to have done a surface swim of about a quarter mile into a current, which physically is near impossible. By going down the cliff face, using ladders, using lots of manpower, we were able to get much closer to where the victim was. But just the transversing down was quite an effort, quite a team effort.
Oh
But
yeah.
once we got there, the diving was much easier than if we had to swim into a current, which is near impossible. Area where you could put boats in, so they just had a non-motorized inflatable raft as a surface support while we were in the water.
So did you guys have to lower the gear down separately?
Yeah, so we every time we dive, we'll have a primary diver who's going to go in the water. We have 100% diver who is ready to dispatch if the primary diver gets in trouble or when two divers are needed. And then we always have a third diver on standby. So with that particular dive, we had four of us who were the divers climb down the ladder, and then the rest of the team, and we climbed down several ladders. We had to scale down rocks, and then they lowered the gear on ropes, and then we had three team members who came down with us who helped us get into our gear and get things done. So, and then we're always on a tether line that also serves as a communication line. So we wear what's called the full face mask. So it's not a traditional scuba mask. It's a mask that covers your eyes, your nose, and your mouth. And with the communications line, you're always tethered, so you know the way home. And the team also knows exactly where you are by the line, but you can also talk back on what's going on. So when myself and the other diver were, putting the victim into the body bag, we could talk to each other as well as the surface, let them know when we were all set, and then also when to pull us back towards shore as we were coming up. So, a lot of training, a lot of equipment, and potential hazards, but we train regularly to make sure we all stay safe.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I'm learning a lot.
Mhm.
That's wow, that's a lot. I commend you guys. All right, so tell us, what are some of the dangers that you might face other than millweed and hard to see water?
Yeah, so a couple things we've also encountered. So unfortunately, if vehicles go in the water, we do bring them up, particularly if they're occupied. And anytime a vehicle goes into one of the lakes or rivers, they'll settle down till they stop moving. So they're frequently on an incline and not stable. So we usually will have one of our experienced divers go in. And if they're going to work with a less experienced diver, as much as possible, you try and stay on the upside of the vehicle until you have to go down, and then we try and secure it. So then we can use lift bags, or we can set a hook to the surface, and they'll use a wrecking truck to pull it up. Sometimes we can get people out of the cars. Frequently, cars will what's called turtle if they get in water that's more than 20 feet deep. So they'll go upside down. So it's extremely difficult to get somebody out of the car under the water. So a lot of times we will pull the vehicle with the victim in it, and that's usually the quickest and safest way. If we did have an entrapment, meaning say a vehicle slipped and fell on one of our divers, we can bring them down what's called contingency bottles. So our setups are you can plug in new bottles for them, so we could keep them supplied with air for quite a long period of time while we're tending to them. We've never had to do that, but we always practice utilizing the contingency bottle. Other hazards include, biohazards. Unfortunately, if we're recovering a victim who's been in the water for a couple of days, there's potential biohazards. There's chemical hazards with a vehicle in the water, particularly petrol. So a few years ago, we were doing a routine drill, and we noticed on the sonar, which I mentioned before, a vehicle in the mud. And so we called the police, notified them that we've located a vehicle in the water. And when we pulled it, it wound up being a Mercedes Benz that had been missing for 14 years, and then oil was leaking. So we had to treat that as a hazardous condition. And petrol can be very toxic to the skin and the eye. So those are just some of the simple hazards we deal with. One of the other hazards you wouldn't think should be a problem, but we've been on some scenes where you're right along the road and drivers don't slow down for emergency vehicles all the time. So we always tell our guys, be careful and don't stand near the roadside of any of our trucks. Believe it or not, we've had some close calls with that over the years.
Oh yeah, my grandfather used to be a fire police, and he used to get pissed.
Yeah, it's a little enraging, and particularly like we were called for a unoccupied canoe along River Road in Southbury, and it's a very narrow road, but you had Southbury police, fire, our trucks, lights going. It was dark, like 9 o'clock, so you really could miss the lights. And
Hmm.
somebody comes driving down and almost clipped into the truck. You're like, how could you not see this?
I swear, man, New England drivers. Oh
So
my
always
god.
tell the guys, wear a lighted vest, but don't go near the road because sometimes we're very close to the road with some of the things around here.
Yeah, yeah. You gotta stay vigilant and
Yeah.
careful. So you said that car hadn't been found for 14 years.
Yes.
How
And
was it found then?
what's that?
How who found it?
Oh, we did. So
Oh,
we
okay.
were training where there's a small boat we know about that's in about 30 feet of water. So we were practicing reading our sonar to get an object, and then we were practicing putting our divers onto that object, which is one of the tools we'll look to find a missing swimmer, is what's called side scan sonar, and we can also do 360. And so we're looking at it, and one of the other guys and myself were like, that looks like a car. So we sent the diver down to check the object out. We're like, yep, it's not only a car, it's a Mercedes. So it was upside down in the mud, just the tires were barely showing. And so we were the ones who found it. That's why I said we called the police then and asked, to let them know we have a missing car. And we were not able to find the last registered owner of the car. So we weren't sure if they were going to still be in the car. And so when we finally got the vehicle on shore, we had 5 police officers, 14 guys from our team, about 30 firefighters, and the crew from the tow company, all waiting to see what was in the trunk of the car. And it was nothing. So nobody was in there. The previous registered owner was located. Apparently, the car was stolen in like
Mm.
2009 and then dumped in the lake. So
Of course. Okay.
yeah, it was like Al Capone's vault, if you remember that, where we opened the trunk.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Speaking of finding things in the water, I forget what lake it was over. I think it's out west somewhere, or a dam that has been drying up. They were finding barrels with bodies
Yeah,
in them.
that is near Hoover Dam out in Lake Mead near Las Vegas. So the water
Yes.
levels have
Yes.
dropped, and they're finding old mob hits, and so
Yeah.
that's why we never know what we're actually going to find. We did have an interesting call during the pandemic in Jackson Cove on a very rainy, cold October night with an occupied vehicle that went into the water. And the victim was calling 911 from the car, but didn't know where they were. So we were dispatched with multiple fire departments all around Lake Shore, and the Oxford Fire Department noticed lights in the water. So when our diver went in, he said, I just went over two other cars. So
Oh my
after we
gosh.
pulled that car, and unfortunately that victim did not make it, we went back with our side scan and realized there were about four cars that had been dumped by an apparent car thief ring out of Waterbury. And so we wound up pulling all of those cars and trying to track down exactly what had happened. But they were all cars that were stolen from a teenage gang and dumped there.
That's so sad.
Yeah.
Oh. But you said the person didn't make it. You said.
He did not, and unfortunately, when somebody goes under the water, there's an you have about an hour to get to them to give them any reasonable chance of survival. And the younger and healthier somebody is, the better. Actually, the colder the water, the more likely somebody is to survive a drowning. But after an hour, the likelihood of survival goes down quite dramatically.
Now, can I
So,
ask, does
yeah,
the cold water, is it because it lowers heart rate and blood flow, or
that's exactly it.
nailed it? I didn't
Yeah.
even look that up. I just asked.
Yeah, it slows the metabolic rate, and particularly the kids can survive a little bit longer. And fresh water, you're more likely to survive a drowning than salt water. And some people get what's called the cold water reflex, where your you know esophagus will kind of shut down in the trachea. The top of it will close, the epiglottis, and you'll get minimal water into the lungs. And that's what's called a dry drowning. And people are much more likely to survive a dry drowning than a wet drowning. Wet drowning is when water gets into the lungs.
Have you guys, or well, I guess you guys mainly deal with fresh water. Is that
That's
true?
right. Yeah.
Have you personally dove in salt water for
Oh,
any?
yeah. I mean, not for search and rescue, but I have been a certified diver since 1989, and I have done about 3,800 dives. So I dive quite a bit, and that was one of the reasons I had a skill set that could help the team. So even just yesterday, I was out in Long Island Sound, which is salt water. And then the good news with fresh water is you don't need to wear as much weight. So believe it or not, we have to put weight on to stay down because the suits we wear give you buoyancy where you'll float. And so fresh water doesn't have the salinity salt water does. So you can get by with less water, less weight. And then what's interesting is the temperatures will change more quickly in fresh water. So the salt water is still pretty cold from the winter. And then when it warms up, it'll stay warm till December. The fresh water warms up more quickly, but also as soon as you pass Thanksgiving, the lakes are freezing cold. And that's where we can start to see ice around here as early as December frequently.
Oh yeah, I saw your guys' Facebook where you were practicing the ice ones.
Love the ice dives myself. It's
You
absolutely
do?
amazing. It's absolutely amazing to look at the formation, but you're really reliant for every individual diver that goes in the water. You need at least three people on the surface to assist with the communications and being tethered, and then actually getting out of the water onto the ice sheath is not easy. So extra hands are very, very, very useful for that. But I love being under the ice.
So what's the average size of a team when you guys go out to a call then?
We need a minimum. So our team, we have right now 20 team members, and we have 15 divers and five dry personnel, meaning folks on the team who don't dive but do shore support. So they work as what are called tenders, where they'll hold the lines, communications, where they're talking to the divers, or boat handlers. So shore support is very important. And we need a minimum of five people to function effectively for a call. So the five would be the three divers, the primary diver, the 100% safety diver, and the 90% backup. And then you need somebody to do comms, and you'll need one person in charge. So one of the line officers, usually, or an experienced team member to coordinate with the other departments and make the plan. So say as the assistant chief, if the chief is not there, then I'm in charge of our team and I'll coordinate with the who's ever the incident commander, usually the jurisdiction of the fire department initially, and then sometimes police department, NCON. The environmental police might be in charge, and then we formulate a plan. So being in charge is difficult because you got to do a lot of thinking. Actually, being the diver, you just have to stay calm and breathe, and you do whatever you're told. So I actually sometimes prefer the diving because I don't have to think. I can just go dive and get the job done, do what I'm told.
Yeah, I would choose the same thing. That leads me into another one of my questions. I wanted to ask, what kind of person do you have to be in order to do search and rescue?
It's we have a wide variety of individuals on the team, and just looking at our four officers. So our chief has been a volunteer firefighter most of his life. He was a dive instructor, and he was a tree surgeon, and now runs the boat dock in Bridgeport. I'm a physician. Our captain is a plumber, and our lieutenant, who's our other line officer, Zach, was a is an engineer, and he's also a former commercial diver. And then we have other team members who are school teachers. Some people who were one guy was a New York City EMT. So we have some DPW guys. So we have a wide variety of people. Some school teachers on the team and various ages. Our youngest member right now is 22, and our oldest member is 72. So we run the gamut there. But you just have to be willing to work, willing to learn, understand the chain of command, and show up and be amenable to. I wouldn't say taking criticism, but input. So before every drill or call, and we really approach them the same way when we're practicing versus game time. We're pretty much the same pace. So you give everybody a plan. We adjust the plan as you're getting feedback, and afterward we always meet and debrief. And if we're dealing with a fatality, we have a team member who's a pastor, myself, and a former team member who's also a grief counselor. So I always reach out to all the team members the day after any drowning, and then again a few days later, because post-traumatic stress is big for first responders. So we, get in front of that early.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do too, because you never really know what someone might be thinking, especially after some kind of incident like these.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that leads me up to this. Has there been an incident that maybe has always stuck with you for one reason or another?
Yeah, I mean, there have been a couple, some in a very good way, one, believe it or not, in a humorous way, and then there are some you think about, I look at it more as heartwarming, but it is sad. So, I'll start with the difficult one was, which is a lesson I learned about 7 years ago. We got called in January for an occupied car that was under the ice, and I remember when a car flips you mix up the driver's side and the passenger side. So I was not expecting. I thought I was on the passenger side. So when I saw, a face in the window, that kind of, it gave me a little bit of a jump scare. And I usually don't scare easily, but that was a call where it was still a potential rescue, even though the victim did not make it. She did get to the hospital with a pulse, and I think she lived about a day. But it was an urgency, and I did not have my thermal undergarments to wear under my dry suit. So I was in the water for about 40 minutes and extremely cold, and I got hypothermic, and I needed some short term medical care right after. Nothing major, but on scene, I had to be rewarmed. And, that was a lesson learned that we're not Superman. So take that extra minute or two to put your gear on. One that was, I think, quite humorous because in addition to diving, we'll also go on the boats and do rescues. And so it sounds like a grim story, but it's actually amusing at the end. So we were dispatched in the middle of the night. This is about 8 years ago now, to find a victim who had drowned, and his friends believed he was dead. So they tied him to a tree along the shoreline of the Upper Pagusset State Forest. So about four fire departments and us were dispatched to look for a body along the lakeshore. And as we were going along, we saw ropes, but no body. And then we heard somebody kind of moaning in the woods. So I scaled up and told him to come to the light. And I was like, it's good light, keep coming. And when we got him on the boat, he kept saying, I'm alive, I'm alive. And I radioed in to the incident command, we got him, he's alive. And they're like, are you sure? And I said, he says he's alive, so I'm going with that. And he made a full recovery. So that was something where, we were expecting a very grim outcome, but we didn't. And the last one that does stick with you, and it was and there have been multiples, but you do talk to each other and work through it. Where we had a double drowning up in Gaylordsville, just south of Bulls Bridge, and it was challenging conditions because the river was steep and it was not easy. And so after we recovered the victims and cleaned them up, we lined our team up. New Milford police were there. Water Witch Fire Department in New Milford was there, and we were all lined up. And the family came by and gave each of us a hug and thanked us. And that really meant a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure the families really appreciate
Yeah.
everything you guys do too. It's got to be hard for everyone, and the family especially.
It is, and I always tell our guys, don't think of it that we're looking for a body when we're doing an underwater search. You're looking for a person that we're trying to bring home, And the other thing is, eventually, most submerged people will resurface. And what you don't want, and I have three daughters now, they're all in their 20s, but I think if they were little and we were out on the boat and came across a floating body, that would be very traumatizing to them. So, not that that's the primary motivation, but that's the other thing is you don't want unprepared civilians and families to also find the victims, which, happens occasionally. So we want to bring closure to the family, but we also want to protect the public because that can be very, very frightening when people see that.
Oh yeah, traumatizing for sure.
Yeah.
Um, if say I was just walking on a lake, this goes for anyone. What should someone do if they were to spot something that they think should be notified about, whether they might see something under the water, a car, body, etc.?
Yeah, the best thing is to immediately call 911, hold your position unless it's not safe for you, and try and mark it somehow. So if you are standing on shore and say you see somebody go under the water, say somebody's out water skiing and their life jacket came off and you were just hiking along the shore and you saw it, if you call in and you stay still, that's what's called the last seen point, and that narrows our search area. Because going back to at the beginning, we talked about you can only see a couple of feet if you're lucky. So it can take a long time just to clear something the size of your living room. Where if you can pinpoint where you saw the victim, and usually if you have two witnesses and you have the ability to triangulate, you can put somebody right on the spot. And we practice doing that. But calling 911 right away, staying put, and trying to mark the spot, particularly if you do have to leave, either because of reception or your personal safety. That say there's a thunderstorm coming and you can't stay by the lake. If you can somehow mark it, that really helps us.
Yeah. Yeah. So what about if you were on the shore of, say, a fast flowing river and you saw something? Would you consider they try to stay where they are or follow
No,
someone?
they should just ideally stay where they are. Now, if you follow and you see they're on the surface, where you want to stay is the last point they went down. Because
Okay.
then what we can do is put like little floats in the water and see where the current's going. And sometimes that can help us track. So, you go last seen point, meaning last time you saw them on the surface. So if you see somebody floating down the river who's struggling, and then you can try to follow them, but stop where you saw them go under, is helpful, and calling that in.
Okay.
But it's
Um,
it's it's difficult, and a lot of people have trouble doing that because they don't realize how helpful that can be. And
yeah,
if
for
you're on a
sure.
boat and something happens, actually stay anchored in place. If, like, say, somebody's swimming off a boat and they go missing, the best thing to do is stay in place and call for help. So, once again, we have about an hour where if we can find somebody, there's a chance of resuscitating them, where once you get beyond an hour, it's tough. So, if we start with a poor last seen point, that makes it nearly impossible to find somebody within that first hour.
Would you recommend people try to take some sort of photo of like where they were? Maybe.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's and more people are doing that. Say, we've had people take video. They couldn't help the victim, but they took video so we could see exactly, where things were, and so it's extremely helpful.
Now, I want to ask you another question. Since we were on the topic of you diving and you've been doing a lot of dives, salt and fresh water,
Yeah,
how often do you read the news?
a lot.
Have you read about the Laos cave divers?
Yeah, it's actually amazing. So I don't know the details, and that's just like the case in the Maldives. A lot of stuff will come out, but the details sometimes come out later. It's amazing how they got people out.
Oh yeah, and they were still there. What, a couple of them were coming out after a couple of days or something. There's
Yeah, absolutely amazing. That was like the kids that were in that flooded cave a few years ago, where they put a full face mask on them, which is what we use, and knocked them out, and so that way they didn't panic and brought them out. So yeah, you like to hear about stuff like that. It's funny, you get all the details usually about a month later, although a lot of people will speculate online about it.
yeah, that typically happens with media.
Yeah.
um, you said knock them out.
Yeah, they sedated them so they wouldn't panic. So if somebody's never been diving or on scuba, it can be very intimidating. So if you put a full face mask on somebody, that's an air pocket, and the tanks have air. So if you give them what is called conscious sedation, like if they were going to extract a tooth on you, they don't, intubate you, but they knock you out where you're unconscious but breathing, and that way you don't panic and you can breathe normally. Where if somebody panics and you hyperventilate on a scuba unit, you can what's called overbreathe a unit, and you can get a buildup of CO2, and that can really be quite dangerous.
And so when they are going under this sedation, is
Hmm.
it a lack of oxygen then? Is it a controlled oxygen to?
No, no, they give them like a pill to knock them out, like Ativan or
Oh,
like
oh, you give him a pill underwater?
Well, the cave with the kids a few years ago, they were in a cave underwater, but they were up in an air pocket.
Oh, okay, okay. Sorry, sorry, I
Yes,
misunderstood.
that's the only way you can survive for a few days. So just like the recent cave where they rescued them, they were in an air pocket, so you can get to them, give them stuff, and then but you have to get them out underwater.
Gotcha. I gotcha.
Yeah, scuba unit, typical scuba unit's only going to give you about if you're really good on air, a tank one tank will give you about an hour, hour and a half. If you're panicked, much shorter than that. And so rebreathers, which are complicated, can go much longer, but only about 3 or 4 hours. So there's no way anybody was going to survive several days. But what they do is they sedate them, put them on scuba units where it won't come out of their mouth, so something like a full face mask, and extract them that way.
Okay. And when you go to place these masks on someone else underwater, is
Well, we
there?
never would, but the cave divers, like what we do, you
Oh,
wouldn't do
okay.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you had to, is there a way that you remove any water that gets caught in the
No,
masks?
usually what we would do, because if we could get to somebody under the water, we're just going to take them straight to the surface. So we're not doing any enclosed overhead, and most of the victims we get are 20 to 30 feet. So it would be complicated and more dangerous to try and put them on air. Where these caves, they're in an air pocket, and the only way to get them back to the surface is to go through the water and back up. So that's where they will put them on scuba units, but that's not something we would ever do.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. You guys are more looking and getting in and out as quick as you can.
Yeah, and we're not doing like penetration cave dives, you know.
Yeah.
So
Do you
even though
guys
that's search and rescue, that's very very different, techniques.
ever do anything with other like I think Milford has a search and rescue too?
Yeah, we work. So we're more inland. So we do collaborative work with the New Milford Police Dive Team, Brookfield's dive team, Danbury Police have a dive team, and then in the Waterbury area, it's made up of various fire departments. Is the Region Five dive team. So we all work collaboratively, and because the training is really similar and the techniques are similar, particularly with New Milford and Brookfield. We've done dives where we've integrated our divers with their divers and did a combined team dive. Last summer on July 4th, there was a drowning in Danbury, so we were searching and trying to get to the victim within that first hour. So Danbury was coming in from one direction with their divers, and we were coming from the other direction, and the divers converged. Danbury police found the victim, and our diver was about 5 feet away and got him back to the shore. And so, we played very nicely with others, and it's very important in the dive community. We all work well with each other. We do not see it as a competitive sport.
Oh yeah, no, that's good. I didn't
Yeah.
think you guys did.
Yeah. No, but there are some places, unfortunately, where that is, but that's not the case in the area, not with the other teams that we work with. So we all work very nicely, collaboratively. We all know each other, and we all really respect each other because we know how much it takes to do any of this.
Oh
And
yeah.
as well, the fire departments we work with, so our team just does diving. Some of the other teams, like the police dive teams, they have to do all their police work and then dive. The fire departments, they have to learn how to fight fires, do vehicle extractions, and they're doing the diving on top of that. So, we're good at what we do, but have a hell of a lot of respect for these guys who do so much out for our communities.
Oh yeah, they're workhorses. Yeah, so let's try to get into your life a little bit. So outside of search and rescue, you also dive a lot for fun?
Yeah, I dive recreationally. I'm also one of the volunteer divers down at the Norwalk Aquarium. So I go in the exhibit there that's called the Ocean Beyond the Sound, which has right now 7 sharks in it. And we do an educational program where we talk about the sharks and the environment. And with the full face mask like we use for search and rescue, we were able to talk to the crowd and take questions from the crowd. So that's a lot of fun. I've been doing that for 16 years now, and I do that once or twice a month.
And have you traveled anywhere?
Yeah, I've been diving. Actually, I've dove 38 states, so I want to get all 50 in at some point. I've been, multiple, both coasts of Mexico, Costa Rica. I lived in Ireland for a year back in the 1990s, so I dove all around Ireland, including some of the inland waterways, but on all the coasts, north, south, and did a few hundred dives when I was living there. I've been diving up in Canada, and then as well warm water diving down the Bahamas, Florida. So I've gotten a nice variety of dives.
And do you prefer salt water or fresh water?
I like either. Salt water, you're more likely to see sharks, so I do like being in the water with sharks, and I've seen some of the, more notorious sharks in the water, so that's been fun. The freshwater, particularly up in the Great Lakes, you have historic shipwrecks that, because the water's cold and fresh, are incredibly well preserved. So there's an area north of Toronto, in this area called the Bruce Peninsula, which is near off Lake Huron, called Tobermory, and there's a collection of wrecks up there that are preserved by the Canadian government, and they are in incredible shape. So that's always fun. And then coral reefs are great. And then recently, I was down diving in the Sea of Cortez, and the marine life down there was just unbelievable.
Oh yeah. Have you done any kind of video recording underwater or GoPro?
Yeah, I use GoPro. A friend of mine, she has a really good camera, so she's been getting some really good pictures. But I usually take short clips on my GoPro, and rather than letting it run the whole dive, it's much easier to edit that way. But yeah, I like the GoPro, and they come out pretty good.
Nice.
We use the GoPro for search and rescue as well. So if we are doing a recovery, both for training purposes and evidence, we will, film a lot of what we do.
Yeah, that's actually really good too. I went to the Bahamas and I did some not scuba diving, but I just snorkeled a little bit. And yeah, the I think the marine life is something to behold in the
Yeah,
ocean.
it's
So,
incredible. Yeah.
well, is there any way you can let anyone know that if they're in Connecticut and around you guys, if they'd like to join Newtown Search and Rescue, how to reach you, what kind of courses you offer?
Yeah, so if anybody ever wants more information on us, we do have social media pages for Newtown Underwater Search and Rescue, both on Facebook and Instagram. And so we post a lot of our training. With calls, we post some, but we generally don't like to divulge information. That's because that's going to come from who's ever in charge. But we also have our website, newsar.org, which talks about the team. And we do have applications if somebody was interested in joining. So what they do is they fill out our application online and then meet with the membership committee. We do train at least once a month with scuba and then do boat training on top of that. So anybody who joins, we ask that they, if they're interested in applying, that they do need to live nearby because we are a first response team. So they don't have to necessarily live in Newtown, but within a short radius. They do not have to be a certified scuba diver, but we provide training in first aid, CPR. If somebody is a certified diver and they've been active on the team long enough, we will pay for their dry suit and full face mask certifications, but we will not do that just as soon as somebody joins the team because those are expensive. But people have to, if they want to be a diver, get their own diving certification. So that's what they're responsible for.
Okay. And is there an age that they need to be?
Over 18.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Awesome.
don't have any age limit, but unfortunately, with what we do, and uh, there's some point in all of our lives where lifting a 70-pound gear set, which we do ask that everybody who joins the team be capable of lifting 70 pounds, because that's what our full gear sets weigh, and we have to carry those, clean those, move those. So if somebody's not physically capable of, lifting objects and assisting divers, unfortunately they're not going to be able to do some of the basic requirements we have.
All right. Hear that, people? You got to make sure you can pump some iron.
Yep.
All right, Dr. Cassetta. Well, I really appreciate your time. And if you have a story about the blue and you'd like to share it too, email me at atdwtb@gmail.com. Dr. Cassetta, it's been a great evening with you. I really appreciate your time. Thank you again for your volunteer services. And I wish nothing but the best for your team, your family. And I hope you have a great night.
I'll really appreciate it. Take care.
You too.
Bye.